Hey everyone, welcome back to On Purpose. I'm genuinely so grateful that you take out time, energy from your day to listen, learn, and grow. Remember, I'm trying to help you master self, work, and love. And every week, I invite guests that I think are going to help us uncover new solutions, think about new ideas, and push us towards deeper thought. And you know what I'm like, I love bringing guests onto the show that are going to challenge the way we think, that have lived very different lives from me, that we can dive into and learn from their experiences. And today's guest is someone I'm really excited to have because I've been wanting to have this conversation for at least, I think about maybe 9 years. So for me, it's a big moment to have this guest today sitting here at the podcast. And he is none other than the number one sales trainer in the world, the best-selling author of the iconic book and of course movie, The Wolf of Wall Street, and the new host of the Wolf's Den podcast, which I highly recommend you check out. Welcome, Jordan Belfort. Jordan, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
So I have a story to tell you.
Let's hear.
When I was speaking about philosophy, science, spirituality, all of these things, when I got involved at the age of 18 in this world, so it's since the past 13 years, someone's video came across me. That video was yours.
Oh.
And I saw one of your videos where people had been glamorizing the life that you lived, having seen The Wolf of Wall Street, read the book. And you in that interview, in the most humble, nice way, were talking about how you didn't want other people to go ahead and do the same.
Right, yeah.
And I actually did a talk which was based on The Wolf of Wall Street at a university in London, at the London School of Economics.
Really?
And I used clips from interviews by you to share this incredible point of how you had changed your views of success.
Sure.
So anyway, I've been fascinated with you.
Well, I think that, the problem, not a problem, but the reality is that some of the stuff that when you see it on screen, they don't glamorize it. It's glamorous. It just is. And the problem is when you try to take something and, you say, oh, it's glamorizing, and blame Martin Scorsese. I think it takes away because I think there's a lot to learn. And as I said, I don't want people living that life, right? I was young. I did it at the time. It made sense to me then because people do crazy things, right? But I think that on most levels, when kids, and I'm really for young people, right? They watch the movie. I think most people get it. I think the vast majority say, wow, I love some of the stuff, the camaraderie. I love the money he made, the entrepreneurial spirit, right? Training the salesman, all these kids coming from nothing. And I think they're smart enough to know that, I'd love to have that thrill, but I don't want to go into the part where people lose money or people lose their souls for a while. Seriously, where, with all the drugs, that was, disastrous for my life, right? So it bothers me sometimes. I think when I think the media almost amplifies that by trying to condemn it rather than taking it for what it really is, which is, hey, here's what, there's really good and there's really bad. Like in most things, there's a yin and the yang, right? So yeah, I feel a responsibility. No, I do, because I don't want people that are in their teens and 20s like, I want to be like it's not what you want to do, but there's a lot to be learned from it.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And I want to go back to the beginning. I was reading somewhere that you actually set out to want to be a dentist, which I know a lot of my friends back in London who are dentists right now are going to be inspired by your story. Tell me how that was an aspiration and then how it's changed.
So basically, it wasn't that I wanted to be a dentist. I wanted to be rich. I always wanted to be rich. I did. I came from a poor family, not very poor, but lower middle class, right? And my uncle was a dentist, and he had a lot of money. My mother, since I was 2 years old, sitting in the high chair, she's like spoon feeding me applesauce, and she's like, the only no way to wealth is you got to be a doctor or a dentist. It's like freaking hypnosis, right? Yeah. So it's like they insert that belief in you. I'm sure the belief systems, right? So you're hearing that. So when I was 20 years old, graduating from college, if you would have asked me what I wanted to do, I'd say I want to be rich for a living. It wasn't like I didn't know what I wanted to do, like most young people. So I said, well, if I go to medical school, I was a very good student. So I go to medical school. 10 more years, I'll go crazy. I said, I'll be a dentist 4 more years, I'll be Dr. Belfort, right? And it'll all be good. So I apply, I get in. It's my first day of dental school. It's the Baltimore College of Dental Surgery in Maryland, right? So the dean stands up. He's like this white-haired guy, white jacket, very dental looking. I go, wow, that's a dentist, right? I'm looking around the audience, 100 kids. Everyone's pretty bright-eyed and bushed. I'm like, okay, so far so good. So the dean's like, welcome to the Baltimore College of Dental Surgery. You'd be proud to be here. Dentistry is an amazing profession and blah, blah, blah. Okay, he goes, but let me say this. the golden age of dentistry is over. If you're here to make a lot of money, you're probably in the wrong place. I'm like, what the hell? I said, excuse me, I got up and I walked out the first day. And
On your first day?
Yeah, I dropped out the first day. I dropped out and I couldn't bear to tell my mom, so I was like, oh my. She's like, how's school? I'm like, oh, it's pretty good. And then finally my money ran out. I had to go back home. That's how I ended up getting into the world of sales and ultimately Wall Street.
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
dental story,
Yeah, no, I get that. I grew up, I always say this, I grew up having three choices: to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure.
Yeah, right.
To my family and extended family, and those were my three options.
Very similar to my family.
Yeah,
exactly.
and same. I came from that lower middle class background.
And my brother's a lawyer. My mother's a lawyer.
Yeah, all my cousins are doctors. Right. Literally every single one of them. Maybe one's a pharmacist, but that was the culture.
The black sheep of the family.
Exactly. How did you find that when you were breaking out to do something different? And I don't want to go into the goal yet, but just your process where you saw people, lawyers around you, but you were breaking away from that. Was that something that was easy to do for you because your goal was so set, or was it difficult at first to say?
Oh, no. It was something that was always part of me. In other words, from a really young age, I was one of those sort of the kids that had the lemonade stand. At the age of 8, I was knocking on doors with the paper out, expanding my paper out. At the age of 10, I used to shovel driveways after snowstorms in New York, make $20 a pop. At 12, I saw David Copperfield on TV and said, I want to be a magician. I started doing children's parties. And then I actually hit it really big at 16. I started selling ices, blanket to blanket, on a massive beach called Jones Beach in New York, right? So I went there and I started making about $200, $300, $400 per day. This is in the 70s, yeah, in the 70s, wow. Which is like over $1,000 a day now. And that changed my life. Once I started making that, and I had a lot of money as a kid, my teens, I linked up in my mind, I had this belief because I watched my parents struggle. They're brilliant people, right? Hardworking, educated, and broke. I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, what's missing from this picture? I'm like, why would two hardworking people, wildly educated, right? With career, with degree, why would they not make money? And I saw a couple of things that I thought really were instrumental. Number one was the no risk taking. They were risk averse, completely depression era mentality. That was number one. Number two, they thought that things like sales and persuasion and marketing were inherently evil. There was something wrong with it. So because of that, they never tried to market their skills or sell them to other people. So they worked for other people for a paycheck, and then also they never bought a home. It was very depression era, and they were wonderful, amazing parents. So I saw those things, and I think what happens with most people is that you grow up and you see your parents' beliefs, either you adopt them or you go the exact opposite way. I went the exact opposite way and always did. So it was not a leap. It was actually a blip to go to dental school, but it was mostly out of confusion, I think. And I was like, I also, because there's always a girl involved, right? So it's always a girl. So there's always something about it. I can trace back to every mistake I made to a girl from 5 years old. I have a scar on my forehead here where a girl was chasing me. I ran to a brick wall. So it's always been that.
They were chasing me.
They got worse over time, right? And now I finally got the best woman in the world for the last 11 years, and my life's infinitely better because of it, right?
That's amazing.
But no, seriously, my girlfriend, she was still in DC. I was like, oh, I'll be near her for one day, And we broke up, of course, right after I graduated.
No way. I love that. Why do you think it is, those two things you brought up, why do you think it is that we have this inherent belief that sales, persuasion, negotiation, marketing are evil? Like, where does that come from?
I think first of all, if you go back to the 60s, especially, right? It's the time when there was this sort of counterculture was coming of age in the hippie mark. If you go back like Mad Men, perfect example. Did you watch you ever watch this TV?
Yeah.
Remember how there was always this oh, you're an ad guy? So back in the 60s, right? Remember that? So that was pretty accurate. And it was always like, oh, it's like the lowest thing. You're an ad guy. What do? You manipulate people, right? And I think the world has evolved somewhat right now. But that was a big part. My parents, I don't know if do you have door-to-door salesmen in London?
We do have, yeah. They come on.
All right, so a lot in New York, when the door-to-door salesman would knock on my door, it was like, get out the shotguns, the fill a brush man. My parents hated salespeople, And my mother thought there was something. My mother's very not that she's spiritual, because she's not. She's religious a little bit, but it's more about customs and natural spirituality. But my mother is something about, in her mind, it's sales and marketing is related with being shallow and not depth. And the problem with that is that selling something and the product itself having depth are not mutually exclusive. In other words, you could advertise and sell an amazing product that gives people great benefits and amazing value, and then it's congruent, it's an awesome thing. Or you can use that as in a deceptive way to sell things that have no value and little benefit. So yet in her mind, she flinked it up as a blanket. And I think that in any aspect of life, whether it's sales, and any belief you have about money, life, love, extremes are never really good because the truth usually always lies somewhere in the middle, right? So I think in this case, that was really what it was.
Today, I'm going to share with you one of the most useful apps on my phone. Before I do that, I want to ask you a question. When's the last time you read a book for fun? If you're still thinking, that means this message is for you. In today's digital age, it's so easy to be distracted and overwhelmed with everyone's feed at the cost of neglecting your priorities. If you love books and pursuing new ideas, but feel you don't have the time, I have just what you need. I highly recommend the Blinkist app. Blinkist is the only app that takes the best key takeaways, the need-to-know information from thousands of nonfiction books, and condenses them down into 15 minutes so you can read or listen to wherever you are. As you know, I love reading autobiographies, and they're usually very dense. So before I start reading one, I use Blinkist to filter if it's a book I will truly enjoy. I enjoy using Blinkist on my phone, on the elevator, or on my iPad at home. The minimal interface makes it so easy on my eyes, and with no distractions, I can fully focus. And I've just reread Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, and I thought it was an amazing look into our history and should be required reading for all. Right now, for the holidays, Blinkist has a special offer just for our audience. Go to Blinkist.com/J, try it free for 7 days, and save 25% off your new subscription. That's Blinkist, spelled Blinkist.com/J to start your free 7-day trial, and you'll also save 25% off, but only when you sign up today at Blinkist.com/J. Yeah, and how many times have you found that? Because I think it's often those perceptions or those stereotypes are based on someone having had a bad experience.
Well, that's always about, right? So it's either you had the experience
or your friend did.
Someone told you about the experience, you saw it, you heard it. So, we develop beliefs. Either we experience it ourselves. It could be something where your parents says, money is the root of all evil. And you're like, oh, you're 3 over, oh, I guess so. And you adopt it. The thing is, I always say is that your brain, we're not born with spyware. And these limiting beliefs that get inserted in us almost, right? It's like we can't, unless you're really aware, you don't have a natural protection against those limiting beliefs. Because what happens is very often is you'll take an action, right? And the action doesn't get you a good result, especially when you're young. Because, you don't have the strategies yet. You don't have the wherewithal, right? Maybe you were in a disempowered state at the time where you're not, so you get a bad result. So what happens is you get a bad result, and then that's the result. What does that really mean? Well, a result only has meaning based on the language that we apply to it. So you apply meaning to a result, and you could say, okay, I tried something and I failed. What's the meaning of that? The meaning is I'm terrible at that. I should never do that. Felt bad. So because when you have a negative result, it feels bad. So what ends up happening is if you typically will fall into a disempowered emotional state, like you'll negativity, fear, right? Self-loathing, right? And then you'll say, like for me, with artistry, drawing. When I was in kindergarten, I tried to draw a bowl of fruit, and all the kids around, and the teacher, Mrs. Roskin, I still remember her name, right? The girl, I look at the girl drew this beautiful bowl, and mine looked like it was someone sneezed on the paper. So Mrs. Roskin, she goes, "Oh, Lisa, what a beautiful picture. Lisa is such a budding Van Gogh." Then she looks at me, she goes, "Jordan, you're just not gonna you're just gonna be good in math and science." And I'm like, oh, and just like that, right? I feel bad. So what does it do? Next time I go to draw, I get nervous, or you don't typically do things you're not naturally good at. So your potential gets cut off. We're all born on day one, I believe, most of us with, unless obviously everyone's got certain natural born talents, but generally speaking, we're born with this amazing pure potential. And then we start taking actions, and based on the results we get, if we get a good result, we say, oh, wow, that feels good. Let me practice that. Let me do it more. Let me learn a strategy. And it's a self-reinforcing loop that turns you into something that's you're proficient at something, and you get great at it. And if you get a bad result, right, it's the opposite. So I think that's a lot of it,
Absolutely. And having been someone who's, you know, when I look at your life and your journey, you've been in parts of your life where there are things that you have deep substance in and you're sharing them. And we also see plenty of people online today who aren't necessarily selling things that they're genuinely experts in or learning. And so you see that again too. And I mean, you even see the worst. Like, I just want to address this for my podcast audience. The amount of people that have fake Jay Shetty profiles right now and are trying to scam my audience. And I'm sure you've experienced that for years.
I got this thing. I actually emailed Mark Cuban about it because I got someone goes, hey, I know this is not you. You need to address this. It was someone, I couldn't believe, they wrote an article on Facebook, and it was saying that Jordan Belfort just got out of Shark Tank with Mark Cuban. They went partners on a new currency trading system, and it was a whole thing with send your money here to invest. And I'm like, what? So I emailed Mark, you didn't go, dude, it's crazy shit going on, right? So basically, you know, you're right. I mean, it's very annoying, you know? And I can't count the number of, I guess it's good that some is verified and not, but still, it's
still unfortunate. And this is my thing. Like, I feel total compassion to people who have to even want to dupe people like that. Like,
I'll tell you what's even more, I think, problematic. It's not so much the Jay Shetty fake profiles. I think people will quickly know who's Jay Shetty and who's not, right? And I think that's less true. When you cross over a certain point, people know who you are, right? The problem is the people who are not Jay Shetty, but who are teaching things, pretending to have the same knowledge and wisdom as a Jay Shetty, but haven't done the work, haven't lived the life, and aren't authentic about it, and they're regurgitating something they read in the book, and they really don't have a basis for what they do. So they give a watered-down, typically self-serving version that's designed to sell people products. And that's destructive. And I hate that. Like, with, you know, these free webinars, attend a free webinar, and it's like designed just to separate people from their money. I mean, that's the really destructive part, is they'll latch onto you and they'll target, like, for instance, okay, you go to Facebook, custom audience, everyone who likes Jay Shetty. So
I know that.
And so you know, that people are interested in self-help, right? And then they'll target with a sort of a watered-down, bogus, self-serving message that results in ultimately them sending them $10,000 to go through the and Shetty mastercourse. And that's the even worse, I think. You know?
Yeah, right.
That frustrates me because I'm in sales training and there's so many terrible, oh my God, and they're just like, and they're expert at marketing, not at sales training, and they use that, you know?
Exactly. What have you learned? Like, you've gone from that journey of you saying, I want to be rich, like, you know, I want to be rich when I grow up. That's the deadline, to having gone from having everything, having nothing, building it all back up again. Like, tell me, where in that journey was there any fulfillment or a period of like, this, you know, I've done something now, and where was the journey of growth?
So what I will tell you is so interesting. So before we started, we quickly told your story, right?
Yeah.
And I was laughing because, you know, I said, what motivated you to go? You said, well, I saw my friends that were rich investment bankers and most of them miserable. That was me. Oh, seriously, when I was flying high, and this is what I try to say about, you know, the glamorizing the drug use. You know, happy people don't do 20 Quaaludes a day and snort enough cocaine to do a ski jump off of you. It's like, it's not a happy person, right? If I could go back in time, I would definitely eliminate that from my life. I would, because I can't look back at one experience that was enhanced by it. I wouldn't, let me rephrase that. I wouldn't change anything I did like that because it's my life and it brought me to where I am now. I don't look stupid to live, but if I could whisper in my young self, I'd say, slow down. It's not a great way to live, right? I'm thankful I'm still alive. But I think for me, I didn't do what you did. You took, you know, it's like that old movie where, like, you know, Mr. Destiny, where you went left, I went right. I did pursue Wall Street, and I think it's very easy to lose your soul there. And I don't think it's something that's wrong with Wall Street per se, as much as the idea that on Wall Street, you're not building typically or creating things. You're trading off the ingenuity of others. And so when you're done as a broker or an investment banker, what do you have to show for it other than money falls out of the bottom of it? So the money has no meaning to it. So in order to give the money meaning, you try to buy things to have value, tangible value to what's an intangible number in your bank account. So you have this almost compulsion to buy things. So in the beginning, you feel, let me buy a big house. Oh, wow, it feels good for 2 weeks. Let me buy a second house. Let me buy a yacht, a plane, right? And you get this material trip. And then next thing you know, you're on that treadmill where you almost can't go back from that because you're now supporting a lifestyle you've grown accustomed to. Right. And on top of that, then even worse than that is the fact that I think many people, and I was like this, so I can only speak for myself, but many people, I left my adolescence and came into adulthood very insecure with a lot of wounds from my adolescence and insecurities. But I always said to myself, I know it's okay that I don't feel good inside. I don't feel whole. But once I get rich, then I'll feel great. But then I got rich and I felt exactly the same. And that's when panic sets in. See, like you see this a lot with, it's my own theory at least, that a lot of these like young stars that blow up, they go crazy. Why? Because when you're chasing success and you don't feel good inside, you're like, okay, I shouldn't feel good inside because I'm going after something I don't have yet. When I get there, then I'll feel good. So you can rationalize out saying, I'm not confident right now. I'm not happy. I don't feel whole, but I'm struggling. I shouldn't, right? And then you become more famous than you believed and then you're like, I'm still the same guy, just with more money. And that's when panic sets in. So what do? Let me take a pill to feel better because I can't feel like this anymore. I don't like, and that's the disaster of it all. See, that happened to me. Yeah. And what happened was that once it starts, just then talk about self-fulfilling cycles, right? So it fed on itself and it fed on itself. And I had some talents and I invented a way of training salespeople. And it was beautiful in the beginning and it got so corrupt. So I can honestly say to you, I was never happy. I was never truly, I had happy moments. I had fun. I had a great time. I was never genuinely happy. Of course, like the day my daughter was born, I was happy and could never be happy and love. And they're not, again, I'll use the word again, mutually exclusive. They're not. Like
Sure.
you can have these things you love and adore, but not, I never felt whole, so to speak, right? I don't think I really ever felt whole until I lost all my money, went to jail, came out and met my current wife.
Wow.
And I learned more from her because she lived more like you. And she's this amazing woman, very much like your lifestyle. She was, she was beautiful. She could have had anything. She could have any guy, and she's single mom, and she came from a wealthy family. And she lived a very austere life and stayed true to her values. And you could agree with her values or not, but it was true to her. And she had all insecurities too, like everybody else. But I from her, and there was a sort of trust and mutual respect that it allowed me, and I already made a shift. I don't think it's always a series of shifts,
Of course,
right? But that was like the final nail in the coffin for me of becoming the person I try to be today and feel congruent with. Is that I finally felt like I truly was happy, had someone that understood me, and that would never let me down. Like we could fight, but that would, a real partner in life, a soulmate, so to speak.
Wow, that's beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing.
I'm lucky, because I had a lot of women that like I probably went for the wrong type of woman, the old pickaxe in the shovel, like looking for prospecting for gold, and the gold, right? And
of course.
And again, it might have been fun, but and I think when it's always say the things that make sense when you're 25 don't make sense when you're 55. So
yeah. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing so openly as well.
Yeah,
like, I love that. I love hearing that because I think it's so important to hear it from someone who's genuinely been through it all, which is phenomenal. Like, like you said, like your experience is so powerful because you've experienced it all. When we're hearing from you, we're actually hearing from someone who's been there, done that at extremes. And that actually helps a lot more people in the middle.
I think what, it's funny because it even helps me when I hear other people and like, I felt just like that.
Yeah.
It helps me.
Yes.
So I think, I think it's a gift I can give people because I have a high profile around the world, especially with young people, is that say, wow, I mean, he looked like I thought he was so confident. I thought he was so happy. I was never confident. I never was. I was, and it wasn't like I was covering up for it. I was just moving forward, trying to I was trying to ignore. It wasn't like I was covering up for it. I was just moving forward, trying to make everything okay always. And I had talents that allowed it to appear. You get it?
Yeah, totally. I get it.
And then also because I think because of all the money I made, it allowed me to get away with things. In other words, most people would have hit bottom long before me. I had too many handlers around, and if I fell asleep in a bush because if I was on 5 lewd, someone picked me up and bring me home and put me into bed. If I, was scuba diving and decided to take my tank off because I was so high, someone said, put your tank back on. Like, you know what I'm saying? So all those things and thankfully I'm alive, right? But, again, while I was going through it, there was a lot of self-loathing the whole way. And not anymore, which is, by the way,
I can tell. Yeah, I don't feel that way.
It's such a great way to live,
Yeah, and tell me what that was. What was it about that whole experience of going to jail, getting broke, coming out, meeting your wife, which you spoke so beautifully about, which I want to dive into because my audience loves hearing about relationships too. But what was it about that newfound confidence? Where was that now coming from? That newfound growth that you're talking
So
about?
I think part of it was that in my own mind, I have a very logical. So we always have this logic and emotion. We all have those two minds going on, right? I'm a dominant logical thinker, and my emotion comes from accident because by default, because you have to have it. It happens automatically, right? But for me, in my mind, I was so dead set when I got out of jail that I am never going to make a mistake like this again. I'm never going to use the skills I have for evil purposes, and I'm going to do it right. I'm not going to cut any corners. I'm going to play the long game. I'm never going to embarrass my children again, who I love more than anything. And I had such conviction of belief when I left jail. There was no way that I was ever going to get in trouble. No way. There was no amount of money that I would cut a corner for. Nothing I would do. I would never. I had this belief now that was so okay, that I'll never make a dollar by stepping on someone else unless I'm giving more value than I'm getting back. I'm just not going. And I've stayed true to that from the day I left jail because I had the government look at my asshole with a microscope. I'll tell you that much because they're saying, how is this guy making so much money? And as you know, I'm still here. Like, no, because I've never cheated a dime on my taxes, everything. So which was the opposite. I was the guy that I wasn't trying to lose people money, but it was it wasn't my main value. My value was let me make money. My value,
whatever it takes.
My value shifted to let me give people value because I know I'm a great businessman and I can monetize that value. And that's what the purpose of a business is. So having that core belief was the foundation for everything that came after it. And then that attracted into my life amazing people. Because when that's the belief you have, you attract people like that because you move yourself into situations. My wife would never tolerate the old me. She fell in love with the new me, the guy that she saw the pain I felt about the mistakes I made, the remorse I had, and she saw how hard I worked. I wasn't having a ghostwriter. I taught myself to write, which I think probably was the linchpin of because she was skeptical, rightfully so, at the beginning, but that she knew that I was doing the work, right? And I think that was the real part of it. And from there, all amazing things grew.
Absolutely, yeah. And one of my favorite ways of saying it is, Peter Diamandis talks about we should redefine the word billionaire to be someone who impacts the lives of 1 billion people.
There you go.
And it's natural when you.
I love him, by the way. Huh? I love Peter. He's great.
Yeah, he's awesome. And it's when you impact the lives of 1 billion people, you naturally attract that. So that's awesome, man. I love that. And I want to dive into you about relationships because you have 3 children.
I have 3.
3 children, which is amazing. It's beautiful to hear about your amazing relationship with your wife. What have been the key things that you've taught each other? What do you believe your wife's taught you and added to your life, and what have you given back in value?
One thing, I would say the thing about my wife is her authentic self. She's just she is her authentic self. And it could drive me crazy sometimes. I don't agree with everything that's her authentic self, but the respect you have to have for someone who's her authentic self, that's one thing, okay?
Yeah, I love that. Our wives have to meet. My wife's like that too.
Yeah, and we have the reverse of most people. We spent the first 3 years killing each other. And then went into a state of long-term bliss. So most people this honeymoon. We were the opposite. We had I had massive mistrust because women had left me after my wife had walked out when I lost my money, and she has her own side of the story, right? But whatever it is, my story is my story, right? My belief about it, and her in her life, her parents had not really, let's say they had not. Say not done right, but it's her story to tell. But in her mind, she'd not grown up in a household that didn't exude warmth, didn't accept her for who she was. She's a very spiritual person. She's very much into the she would do what you did. She would be a person that would spend 3 years in robes. That's her. So, and she's if I gave her the chance, I'll go right now and spend 3 years. That's her, right? And her father was the general counsel for Bank America or something. She grew up in that sort of family. It was very formal. Where she was, her and her sister with these 2 little blondes. They had to sit upright and eat with their pinkies out like that. I was like a savage compared to her. You know what I'm saying? And by the way, she still can't shake that stuff.
Wow.
Because it's so ingrained in her with the way she was raised, with her manners and stuff like that, right? But the interesting thing with her is it was the respect I had for her that as a beautiful woman who was really smart, her highest value is I'm going to raise an amazing son. I'm going to raise a man, and nothing's in the end. It's not about money. It's about another man. I'm just going to do it myself with her own resilience. And her son now is my son, okay, Bowen, and he's my partner, my con. He's amazing. I have my own son who's like works with me full time, and like he runs all the, because I'm too old for social media. Like he does stuff. I'm like, what are you doing with that? He goes, no, trust me, people want. I'm like, nah, come on, no one wants it, and everyone wants. I don't get it, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's an amazing gift. And my own two kids, my natural, right? They're all like just best. They just all love each other, and it's so. That was the big lesson, I think, with that, in that relationship was being authentic.
Yes.
It's like I always felt like when I wrote my first book, and I think why people connected with it, I always kept saying I had this like narrative that was like I felt like an actor on the stage in my own life.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing what people think Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, should be doing, not what I want to be doing. And it's a terrible way. I'd say not even a terrible way to live, but it's just not. It's not a sustainable way to live.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like method acting.
Yeah, exactly.
It's literally like method acting.
You got it.
You're playing
Put on a
another
brave
role.
face, yeah.
And now after playing that role, you've convinced yourself you are that role.
Exactly.
So you actually forget that you were playing a role in the first place.
I was like, Daniel Day-Lewis on steroids.
Exactly, yeah,
right?
Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah, absolutely.
He's the best at that.
Yeah, he's really good at it.
Well, you see him like it was a movie that come Gangs
in New York, yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. And the kind of
scared himself.
the efforts he goes through to believe that that's him,
I know.
it sticks. And I love hearing that about your wife, because anyone who follows my wife's on social media too, and she was my first guest on the podcast when we started.
And here's the thing about my wife, but the one thing that drives me crazy about my wife is that she's so smart. She gets so much to offer, but she's not like me. She's behind the scenes. She's my partner in my business. She runs a lot of the company, but she's like the power behind the scenes. And I'm trying to push her to go out. My son's trying to push her, and she like talk about, but it's not her thing.
She's playing her role.
I know, but
she's playing.
We'll get her out here one of these days. Yeah,
absolutely.
Get her on. You'd love her. She's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Maybe she could explain to you how she like came to accept me.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. My wife had to do something similar too, so I get that. I would love to dive into that. Tell me how what I love about you is that we're sitting here, you come across super genuine, super happy, you're a real human being. And my big thing with that is that you've had the courage to redefine who you are.
Right.
And I think all of us go through failures in life, but the extreme of the rock bottom and lows that you've hit in your life, and to kind of emerge from that must have taken a lot. And tell us about that, like how you've risen through failure is very rare.
Yeah. So on some level, there's two sides to this. On one side of the equation, in terms of my ethics and my value, ethics and integrity, not integrity, ethics, different things. Ethics. I was raised to be ethical. I didn't have to discover newfound ethics after jail. I was raised well. My parents were the most honest, legit people in the world. I was not sent out into the world to do things like, that weren't ethical, right? So that part was easy for me. I was raised to have ethics, but integrity, no. Meaning that not to be true to myself and to have that confidence to put my best self out there. Just, I'm okay with how I act, right? So the ethics side was definitely there. I think the shift for me, what really allowed me to do it and made it almost effortless is that, I think it's about values. And, what we value, and at the underlying things like beliefs are these things, and they're all part and parcel with each other, right? So people typically don't change the order of their values very easily. Like we value, like back in the day, my number one value was money, significance, recognition, success. Right, like that. Those are my, and then family, and right, and giving back. Well, way beneath that, right? And as human beings, we will always, not even really, we try to hit our values. Those are our targets we're aiming for. We base our vision on those. Our vision for the future is that based on the underlying values we have. And people don't change values unless something disastrous happens. Or you can spend years in therapy. So you can, there's ways you do it. You can do it through intense therapy, and so we're really working on yourself, and really, but not like really doing it. Or you could blow up like I did, where you blow out and you lose everything. Say, whoa, I'm like, I lost my entire life. I better re-examine. And then almost it happens naturally where you're shocked into re-examining. And once your values make a shift, it's like, whoa, like I had it wrong. And then everything changes. Your unconscious mind's so powerful that once the underlying root shifts, everything that is built on, it all rearranges itself automatically, right? So I think that was the shift. It was a shift in values. and it made everything in my beliefs. And I think my beliefs weren't really that corrupt as much. I had the wrong values. I think that was really the big problem.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. And I always feel that if we don't willingly uproot our negative values or the values that are driving us crazy, we'll be forced to uproot them in a different way.
What happens externally? Exactly. Well, you can either do it yourself proactively. I got lucky because I had it done for me. I had one FBI agent who's a friend of mine now. I love the guy. We're friends. We speak all the time.
No way.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Great guy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I'm friends with the prosecutor, the FBI agent, really with the FBI agent. I love the prosecutor too. He's a wonderful guy. And thank God, because if I would have just gone, I probably would have died. But also, I would have never had living this life that I have today. And, and I want to make it clear, say, oh, look, I guess maybe crime pays. Guys, let me just tell you flat out, okay? If you want to do what I did so you can write a book, it's a real long shot. I never thought I'd finish my book. Better yet, and the only reason, I tricked myself into finishing my book. I finished my book is by when I got out of jail, I wrote like 10 pages I had a guy I sent to an agent. He's like, oh my God, they're great. I was like, really? So I went to my daughter, who was very close with. I'm like, guess what? Daddy's going to write a bestseller. She's like, really? So I used the power of my love for my daughter and my son. Because once I told them about it, all right, I couldn't let them down. So I tapped into my own love, and it was out of love, so much of it was about making my children proud again, to show them that their dad could do it right. Now, and there's such power in that. Like that's really, I talk about you're really knowing your why. Like when I was in jail, I was able to learn to write because I closed my eyes and I'd imagine the faces of my children.
Yeah.
And in that, there's the power of that. You'll always do more for someone that you love unconditionally, a cause you truly believe in. And once you could tap into that, the power that you can muster as a result is almost unlimited. It's limitless, basically.
Yeah,
so
absolutely,
that was the secret.
I love that. And that was actually one of the things that boosted our service as monks. When we became monks, we believed the whole world was our family.
Yeah.
So when you have that visualization and meditation, that is just so energizing to you because now you can live for others truly. And one thing you brought about there, which I'm really glad you mentioned, was around how you can't manufacture your journey to make it marketing. That doesn't work like that. And I think that's a really important point to start.
And it's so, because I hate what the press does sometimes. They'll try to twist something to fit a narrative, and then people will read that and say, maybe that, maybe they say, oh, crime doesn't pay, but people will say maybe it's so stupid because it's the longest of law. Yeah, let me do it. And then Leonardo DiCaprio will play me. It'll be on the, wow, I'll be not, good Lord. It's the whole thing. It's like a 1 in a billion shot, right?
Yeah.
And the truth is, there's so many better ways to make money than write a book. You probably know you've written some books, right?
No. I'm actually writing my first one right now.
You've never written? No, you got to write
it comes.
A book.
It's It's not out yet. I'm writing.
I wrote
right
them myself, which is really a pain in the butt.
I'm working. I'm spending about 4 hours a day on it right now. Every day, right?
I am the slowest writer in the world. I am really terrible at it. But I think the product ends up being readable, but the process is ugly. I'll look at a word like better still, no, even better. Better now, no. And I'll sit there for 15 minutes on one, two. My wife's she's like, you're a broken record, hit me. She goes, better still. I'm like, okay. And it's really,
I love it. But it's a good process, right? Because the process is so, right now, when I'm writing my book, I'm going through all my belief systems and I have to recheck them and reprove them to myself. And it's just giving me so much more profound realization.
So it's a good point. So I think also when I left, it's a good point because I think also what changed me, and then maybe what's what sealed in many things for me, was writing my book was the most incredible form of self-therapy. I was like, whoa. Because you start peeling back the layers and I'm trying to understand myself. And I'm like, oh my God. And I start to really get this crystal clear understanding of what things drove me and sort of the progression of things. I definitely emerged from that experience feeling that I had I don't know if I had changed or not, but I had a much greater understanding into the demons that drove me. I really did.
That's amazing. Did you have people, this is what blows my mind the most is, did you have people, mentors, coaches, who could see and were able to share this with you like you're doing for so many people now? Like right now, what you're sharing here, I guarantee you there are people listening and watching right now who can change their ways because they've listened to this podcast. Did you have people?
The problem is it's a very different time.
Right.
There was no access to information like this, which is why podcasts and just the internet itself can be such an amazing tool. Because now you almost have to, shame on you
Yeah.
if you don't seek out the right information because it's all out there for the taking. But back then you had to go to the public library or go to seminars, and there's so much bogusness out there, right? So for me, I had some mentors. The problem was, and it was I had a talent for training salespeople. And it's such a monetizable skill set that everybody wanted, like it was pulling from me. And I was like, so people will just, it was almost like people would come to me and they just would try to grab a piece of the pie. And I was all too happy because it made me feel good to have such successful people because of my holes I had. You understand? You get it? Like, oh, wow, look at this guy. Meanwhile, he's a freaking criminal. I shouldn't let this guy near me, but he's a famous guy. And it's so you get it? So what happens is you track people into your life based on what you're doing. You track the wrong mentors when you're on that journey I was on. So it's like almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that when the seed is a little bit corrupt, you can't be half pregnant when it comes to ethics. It's just I believe that over time, things tend to mostly become an exaggeration of themselves.
Yes.
They become more, everyone's message becomes more. If you look at someone's message today, look at Donald Trump 35 years ago, you see a sober guy with similar beliefs, but saying them in a very different way where you're like, okay, wow, that sounds pretty mellow. And everyone's like, wow, bravo. And now you see someone that many people find to be offensive. You could love him or hate him, but boys, over time, he becomes more and more of what he is, okay? So even if the core message is actually pure, I believe any of them comes at extreme, starts to take on negative overtones.
Yeah. I love what you just brought up there because fame and money will always open up doors, sometimes quicker than values.
Yeah.
How do we make sure we don't buy into our own hype? Because when fame and money opens doors and you have them, how do you make sure you don't buy into that? Because that's in effect a massive hurdling and stumbling block.
So it's easy to tell someone how and really hard for them to follow it.
Totally.
So the easy way is your friends who were your friends before you were successful are going to be the friends who are there after the trip is over. The people that come on along the way, you'll be lucky if one of them is really actually your friend. The problem is those people are really good at their professional ingratiators and hangers-oners, and it's really, really difficult for people. So it's like I'd be lying if I said there was just some surefire way as much as, listen, the easy answer is, use your eyes, your ears, and your common sense, and just remember that, that you are still the same person as before. So all these people who are in love with the material side or the fame side of your journey, they're not real friends. They're just not. Sometimes you find a great one along the way who just surely has great motives, but most of the time they're not like that. So it's typically about focusing on people that you knew beforehand, not attracting all those on the way up people. They're like just usually really, really toxic. And like a friend of mine passed away, right? But guy in Hollywood, I was Doug Ellen, right? And very successful producer with movies and TV series, right? Anyway, so his oldest friend, they were friends since they were 5, and he was still his best friend. He did Entourage, Doug, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
and you saw that, and Doug was a whole guy, and his best friend was still the guy from his 5. So I think it's really, really an important thing. My best friends are still from when I was a kid. Young.
That's amazing, man. How did you turn that relationship with the FBI into a friendship? How did that happen?
So what happened was
Because that sounds like an awesome.
I had tremendous respect for him. So I deserved to get caught.
Yeah.
For what I was doing, and he played it straight. He didn't entrap me. I wasn't like I was like the only guilty man in Shawshank. I was guilty. I was like, all right, I go to jail. I made a mistake. Let me do my time and come out a better human being for that. My life's not over. I want to rebuild, right? And he recognized, I think what he really recognized is that he understood me, and he knew that I wasn't a bad person, that good people do bad things. And especially the prosecutor, Dan Alonzo, who's now a very well-respected lawyer. He rose up really high in justice. But at my sentencing, Dan Alonzo, they come and go, U.S. attorneys, right? But he actually was already gone from my case, but he actually came back from my sentencing in front of the judge, and he stood up and said, Your Honor, I've never said this before. This is the only guy I've ever worked with that actually gets it.
Wow.
And you can read this in my sentencing transcript. He goes, this guy gets it. He's not going to get in trouble because maybe I'm crazy and Pollyanna, but I am telling you, this guy totally understands what happened, what went wrong, and he's going to be a productive member of society. And I think Agent Coleman is his real name, felt the same way. And when I first got out, I had respect, but then he watched me grow and he was like, I guess he was probably very skeptical in the earliest. And he goes, dude, I'm not, he goes, you just are what you are. I'm really proud of you because you're just, not like in a condescending way, but man, good for you.
Yeah.
And also I wrote about him very fondly in the book because he was an honest, hardworking guy who was doing his job. It was he wasn't like, planting evidence. So well, how could I hate the guy? He was right. I was wrong. He did his work. And I'm glad I made him famous because now he's on the speaking tour. He makes a lot of money. So good for him. He's a great speaker and he's had a great journey as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Tell me about why you think the straight line system has been so successful, especially now, because based on your value proposition of giving more value.
Well, I think for sure that it's funny, I had a limiting belief about it. And I was like, sales. I actually almost thought selling was evil or the straight line was
I've experienced that.
It's so powerful when you really can, use a system of persuasion at a high level. Like the straight line is a very powerful system. And I was like, maybe people misuse it. And I saw that now it seems so ridiculous because it's like anything, any powerful thing that can be used for good or evil, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why it's so effective is that its focus is, there's really no other I've never seen another one where it's like an end-to-end system that it just takes you from the moment you open up your mouth to the last second, even then after, and also shows you that it focuses on 3 forms of communication: the words that you say, the tonality that you use, and the body language that applies to it in person, right? And it puts that into a construct that allows any person to manage a situation of influence the way a natural born close would. See, there's people who are natural born salespeople. I think you are one, by the way, or close to it, but very good, solid communicator, right? But most people aren't. They struggle with that. And what happened was I was an amazingly natural born salesperson. And I was able to break down my strategy of what I was doing. And because I had kids that were not that smart, really, very unsophisticated kids. And I tasked them with calling the richest people in America and they couldn't do it. So it's, I had this other system before that, and you never know how good a system is until you stress it to the point of fracture. So my old system just collapsed. It wouldn't work. And then I panicked. I was like, what do I do? And I had this idea about I said, wait a second, to me, every sale is the same. It was so easy to sell, because my own mind, I was lining things up almost arithmetically and logically. And as soon as I came up with this idea, guys, it's a straight line, watch. And it's just you read the book Think and Grow Rich. Mm-hmm. They talk about this collective unconscious. I tapped into the all that there is, basically. And I almost felt like when I invented it was over a period of 30 days. I felt like I was channeling. I never felt like that. I had so much I never thought of these things before. And when I was done with it, it was the impact it had on these kids' lives. It created a whole, unfortunately went the wrong way because I was out of my mind. And because my values. So what happened was, as a perfect example of bankrupt values, incredible strategy, it goes in a bad direction.
Yeah.
But beautiful values, amazing strategy. You could do, I'm doing more good now than I ever imagined. I get emails every day. All the people you changed my life. It's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you.
So I think that's what it really is that it takes what's the truth about communication.
Yes.
And it puts it in a way that anyone can use it.
Yeah. And I love that because everything's given meaning by how we use it.
Totally.
Right? Technology is not good or bad. Social media is not good or bad inherently. It can be used for something higher or lower.
As are the experiences. It's always about the meaning you apply, right?
Mm.
In other words, so you take something that's benign and malevolent based on how you use it. An experience could debilitate you or be your biggest learning experience in the world based on the meaning you apply to it. It's always about the meaning and the intent, right? 100%. And I think that for me, I've put out over the last 12, 13 years, so much positive intention out into the world. I've not made one action. Not that you always succeed at it. I've tried, maybe gave it bad speeches sometimes or didn't, but I've never not tried. Mm. Every action I took was pure from the start. It was I'm going to make, if I do this, I can make extra money off somewhere. I never did that once, you know? And I think that's a great way to live. And you make more money. 100%. And you make even more money by doing that.
100%.
That's the sick part. You make even more.
I've always believed intention's everything. When people say to me, what do you think's worked for you? What hasn't? I'm like, I started with a simple intention that I really, really wanted to help people. Right. And I never believed that it would be big or small or any of that. I didn't even have a strategy when I started. All I knew is that I had this deep desire and intention. And I started with that. And then I got more strategic and organized and focused.
So I think that, the important thing, and I with a lot of people say, you're a very spiritual guy. I'm not really. I think I'm probably more than I give myself credit for,
Probably
right?
a little bit, yeah.
But I'm so anchored in science and rational thinking. This is how I grew up, So, but I think what happens with a lot of people is they will look at a Jay Shetty or The Secret, and they miss part of the equation. See, everything about the power of intention and manifestation and attraction, it's all true. I know it's true. I've seen it in my own life, right? But it requires the integration of strategy
100%.
and also action. See, remember, and you probably had this in England, right? Where you learn about magnetism, and the teacher in your third grade class says, "Oh, this is a magnet. It's a horseshoe magnet, and this is iron filings." And watch, nothing happens. And then she moves the filings closer. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. But if they get close enough, whoosh, you see the law. So, like the way the law of attraction and manifestation is you set an intention, and that alerts you to what's and then you move towards what you want, and then you can attract
100%.
So there's got to be action on the intention.
100%.
And so, like as you said, then once you start that, then you had strategy, and you move towards what. I think is the secret to success.
Absolutely. I love that, man. Jordan, this has been awesome. We end every interview with the final 5, which is our final 5 rapid fire, quick fire rounds. So these are quick answers, easy for you. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, what is the worst financial decision you ever made?
The worst financial decision? Marrying my second wife.
Oh, really? That's going to be the best. Second question. What is the best financial decision you ever made?
Marrying my third wife.
Okay, nice. I like it. Third question. What is the worst advice you ever received? Think about it.
Oh, don't worry. Everyone's doing it. Take this bag of $500,000. Everyone on Wall Street does that. That was my first ethical lapse. Someone said to me, "Oh, so everyone does this." I'm like, "Really? No, okay, fine." Taking the first step over the line.
Wow, I love that. Question number 4 is, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I ever received? Good things take time.
Okay.
Delay your gratification. That's such a huge one. If there's one thing I tell everyone here, guys, please, you don't have to make everything tomorrow. Delay your gratification. It's better and you make more.
I love that. And out of all the experiences that you've had in the world, what is one experience you think you haven't had yet? Because you've had so many different experiences. What is a new thing?
I haven't seen my children have children yet. I can't wait to have grandchildren. I'm looking, and I'm getting close now because my daughter, I think, is hopefully maybe we'll get married soon. And then I can't wait to have because I'm going to spoil them rotten. I can't wait to have grandchildren,
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Jordan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
My
man.
pleasure.
It's a pleasure having you here. Guys, go and check out Jordan Belfort's new podcast, The Wolf's Den. It literally launched a couple of days ago. So make sure you go and subscribe and check out the podcast. It's going to be awesome. Jordan, tell us some of the guests that you've got lined up or topics and themes that you've got lined up for the podcast.
It's a combination of just business, interesting people. I had like some really famous people and also just average everyday people. And I think one of the great things is because I'm pretty well known, I don't have to always have famous people. I think average people have so much to share. So it's going to be just and funny and fun and lighthearted and a little bit irreverent, but not too irreverent, but a little bit irreverent because I'm irreverent. It has to be,
That's awesome, man. I love that. Everyone, thank you so much for watching and listening to today's podcast. Make sure you've subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you rate and review as well. I'm so grateful to have you as a part of this community. And one thing I always say to you is, after the podcast, share your insights on Instagram, on Twitter, or on Facebook. Anything that you learned, anything I said, anything Jordan said that stood out to you, share it. I'm always looking out for the best comments. I'm always looking out for the best posts, and I repost a lot of them too. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you again next week. Thank you, man. Thanks so much, bro.